Mr. President, the certificate of the electoral vote of the well-known and great state of Ohio seems to be regular in form and authentic. It appears therefrom that George W. Bush of the state of Texas received 20 votes for President. Dick Cheney of the state of Wyoming received 20 votes for Vice President.
For what purpose does the member from Ohio rise?
Vice President, I seek to object to the electoral votes of the state of Ohio on the ground that they were not, under all circumstances, on regular given. Now, I signed objection, and I do that.
Has the senator signed the objection?
The senator has signed the objection.
An objection presented in writing and signed by both a representative and a senator complies with the law, Chapter 1 of Title 3, United States Code. The clerk will report the objection.
We, a member of the House of Representatives and a United States Senator, object to the counting of the electoral votes of the state of Ohio on the ground that they were not, under all of the known circumstances, regularly given. Signed, Stephanie Tubbs Jones, State of Ohio. Barbara Boxer, State of California.
The two houses will withdraw from the joint session. Each house will deliberate separately on the pending objection and report its decision back to the joint session. The Senate will now retire to its chamber.
The objection today is raised because there are irregularities across this country with regard to voting. And we as a Congress have an obligation to step up to the plate and correct them. All voters ought to be allowed to vote early. There should be established a national holiday for elections to bring attention to the importance of voting. We should require those working at the voting booth to be fairly compensated, adequately educated, and sufficiently supported such that the job importance will be elevated. We need to provide them equipment, whether it's punch card, electronic, whatever it is, that it be fully tested, fully calibrated, and that there be a paper trail. What happened in Ohio may well have been repeated across this country, yet that is no excuse for us to push the irregularities behind us and go on with the business of the day. This is an important enough issue that all the people across America want us to address it, they want us to deal with it, and they want us to correct it. I thank all of my colleagues for giving me an opportunity to be heard, for giving us an opportunity to address the issue.
Mr. Speaker and members, I dedicate my objection to Ohio's electoral votes to Mr. Michael Moore, the producer of the documentary 9/11, and I thank him for educating the world on the threats to our democracy and the proceedings of this House on the acceptance of the Electoral College votes for the 2000 presidential election. The Democratic Judiciary Committee staff report clearly establishes that the state of Ohio has not met its obligation to conduct a fair election. Ohio's partisan Secretary of State, Mr. Kenneth Blackwell, I'm ashamed to say an African-American man, has failed even to follow Ohio's election procedures, let alone procedures that comply with federal law and constitutional requirements. Our ancestors who died for the right to vote certainly must be turning over in their graves.
Apparently some Democrats only want to gripe about counts, recounts, and recounts of recounts. So eager are they to abandon their job as public servants, they've cast themselves in the role of Michael Moore, concocting wild conspiracy theories to distract the American public. Such aspiring fantasy authors should note the facts before they let the ink dry on this tall tale.
Most of all, we're here because not a single election official in Ohio has given us any explanation for the massive and widespread irregularity in the state. No explanation for the machines in Mahoning County that recorded carry votes for Bush. No explanation of the improper purging in Cuyahoga County. No explanation for the lockdown in Warren County. No explanation for the 99% turnout in Miami County. No explanation for machine tampering in Hocking County. Read on our webpage 101 pages of great staff work that takes this out of semantics of partisanship, and I appeal to every member of this body to sustain this objection.
Gentleman from Florida is recognized.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues across the aisle have two sides to choose from. The John Kerry side that acknowledges the election is over and President Bush has won, or the Michael Moore side that defines democracy as Democrats going to the polls and conspiracy as Republicans going to the polls. The election is over and the results couldn't be clearer. Why are we here wasting time on silly, Hollywood-inspired conspiracy theories? Well, since Hollywood likes conspiracy so much, here are some real facts. On June 23, 2004, the Michael Moore movie Fahrenheit 9/11 premiered in Washington, D.C. According to U.S. News and World Report, New York Times, and National Journal, one of the few senators who attended this premiere was Senator Barbara Boxer. In this movie, Mr. Moore said it was shameful that not one U.S. senator objected to the electoral vote in Florida. 2 days ago, on January 4, 2005, the same Michael Moore published a new letter to Senator Boxer and other senators, reminding them that they didn't object to the electoral vote count 4 years ago, and he requested they rise and object to the vote count from Ohio today. Today, in fact, Senator Barbara Boxer objected to the Ohio vote count.
So let me simply say to my colleagues, I have great respect for all of you, but I think it's key that whether we're Republicans or Democrats, we understand that the centerpiece of this country is democracy. And the centerpiece of democracy is ensuring the right to vote. And I ask you, my friends, from both sides of the aisle, when we get busy working in the next few weeks, let us not turn away from the things that happen in Ohio. Our people are dying all over the world, a lot from my state. For what reason? To bring democracy to the far corners of the world. Let's fix it here, and let's do it first thing out. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Let me say one other thing that I wasn't going to mention until Maxine Waters mentioned Michael Moore, who has been attacked as a propagandist and so forth. But the only place in the election of 2000 that you saw the Congressional Black Caucus going over there to the Senate to try to be recognized was in Michael Moore's documentary. No place else. The press closed it down, and that's why the whole thing was to demonize Moore. And what he was doing was not being a propagandist. He brought the truth to the American people, just as we bring the truth to the American people tonight.